But to go back a little, with the beginning of American Indian movement in 1968, 69, a lot of the men and women that helped organize AIM came from the prison system, came from the dropout category, came from the reject category, or what we might even call today the lost generation category of peoples. These were men and women that were by and large rejected, formed in the prison system, and came out concentrated, if you will, in Minneapolis, in the northern state area. And there was a lot of police brutality, a lot of men and women disproportionately in the prison systems, and still true today. But AIM began patrolling the communities where the police were coming in at that time. And indeed, we need more AIM patrols even today. It's interesting that there's more legitimacy given to the guardian angels, for example. And yet when you see Chicanos, for example, with brown beret hats, or Chicanos with black beret hats, or patrol of American Indian movement, you know, that raises a lot of attention, and it's not as well taken. Interesting, as I see. And if you know the beginnings of the organization that I just mentioned, you can see how that might be working its way into our communities. But the dropout rate is highest in the American Indian community. College enrollment is at its lowest. Still today, as in the day, as we say now, in the 60s and 70s. Health issues, sterilization programs were going on. Women were being sterilized. The treaties, over 370 treaties that were signed, ratified by the Congress. Indeed, in the U.S. Constitution, Article 6 says treaties are the supreme law of the land. That means that every one of these treaties that we still have today have been violated. And where do we seek justice? Certainly not in the courts here in this country. We're having to look beyond the United States for justice. So we will have our day in court, our day in the world court, where these treaties will be addressed by the world community outside of the U.S. But treaties were being violated back then, as now. And we have it's a big struggle. Even back in the 60s and 70s, early 70s, leading up to Wounded Knee, where there was no justice to be gotten anywhere, that in 1974, American Indian Movement organized the first international conference here in South Dakota, in the U.S., and from that General Assembly of Indigenous Peoples, they called that American Indian Movement seek status at the United Nations, at the international level. So that was the first step going outside of the continental U.S. of the American Indian movement and seeking justice for Indigenous peoples. And that was in 1974 at that General Assembly. And there were over 5,000 people there from all over the world. And from that mandate, if you will, of the General Assembly of Indigenous Peoples, calling for AIM to seek international status, we are seeking nation-to-nation status, but not even the United Nations would recognize Indigenous peoples at that time. So we were relegated to an NGO category, or non-governmental organization category, within the Economic and Social Council of the UN. And that was attained in 1977 through the organization International Indian Treaty Council. And International Indian Treaty Council continues to exist today, founded by American Indian Movement. And through that particular effort, the American Indian Movement organized the first international Indigenous conference in Geneva, Switzerland, 1977. The first international conference. That's the first time in our history that black Indians, white Indians, red Indians, yellow Indians, or Indians from Asia, from all over the world came together in Geneva, Switzerland, 1977. And a lot of work has been achieved since then. A lot of people only know American Indian Movement from Wounded Knee, or the occupation of different facilities, the Bureau of Indian Affairs. American Indian Movement has been involved in walks across this country, from San Francisco to Washington, D.C. In 1978, American Indian Movement led a walk across. At that time, there were 11 anti-Indian legislative bills in the Congress. And through this effort of the walk, those 11 bills that were in the Congress were effectively defeated. Indeed, what came out of 1978 was also the American Indian Freedom of Religion Act. Can you imagine that? Indian people were not allowed to practice their spirituality until 1978. Some of you weren't even born, probably, at that time. But still, this is how recent we have been able to practice and participate in our own spirituality. Prior to that, we have been inundated, as Ross mentioned, by every, not only colonial force, but colonial religion. Just in California alone, you go up and down California and you see the rancherias, or otherwise known as reservations as well. But the rancherias or reservations, they're all different religions, led by different religions. This government would give different religions the responsibility to work in those reservations or those rancherias. So you have Protestants in one reservation, and next to it is a Methodist, and next to that reservation is a Baptist, and next to that is a Lutheran, and blah, blah, blah. Never able to practice our own spirituality. And this is one of the elements in the indigenous consciousness that American Indian movement helped bring about in that spiritual sense, that we're able to practice our way of life from time immemorial. Today we can have sweat lodges, right? We can have sun dances, we can have peyote ceremonies, we can have ghost dance, we can have ceremonies that were forbidden, that were prohibited till 1978. A lot of people don't realize that, don't understand that. And this is what the American Indian movement has brought about, a movement of spiritual consciousness. You know, and we continue to promote that, and for the young people. Leonard Peltier, been in prison now for 35 years. And he won't have a parole hearing till 2025. He'll be around 79 years old by then. And so we really need to get him out. And you see this banner up here with Obama's telephone number? Well, that telephone number's still working. You know, they pay their bills. So get that number and call and leave a message to free Leonard Peltier. Okay? We have a website here locally in the Bay Area that you can contact the American Indian Movement and AIM West and some of the topics I spoke about at www.aimwest.info. Okay? Am I up on the time? Probably exceeded the time. Oh, there you are. It says, all right, thank you.